Oh, it really depends if Robert started recording it.
I took that as a cue to start recording.
Oh, okay, cool, 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 cool. I was about to ask. No, no, I'll leave that question until later. We'll ask you when it's not recording, so it's a bit too weird.
I'm curious about
Okay,
what that
it's
question.
it's it, we'll start it. We'll do it later. But first, oh, because Alec is not coming because of barbecue. Yeah, okay. So Ben, why did you choose this film?
So, yeah, I thought it was about time we watched a classic film that in my opinion, I don't think everyone would have seen, or most people might have seen, but years ago, and it was kind of like it's one of those films that's been around for a few years, but it's kind of seeped into the pop culture. It spawned a franchise. It's a silently brilliant series of movies, in my opinion. There's kind of a popular series, but it's also a cult series as well, because it's kind of like Planet of the Apes as a whole isn't kind of like what you'd say in your top 10 or top five favorite science fiction series. But for me, it's up there. It's one of my favorites. But I think it deserves to be talked about for the impact it had on science fiction and film in general since it came out, and all the sequels and all the reboots since have had such a profound legacy. And this film was the one that started it all. And I feel it's not only one of my favorites, but it's one of those films that does stand the test of time, despite it being a product of its time. It still manages to have a lot of relevancy and nuance and depth and imagination as much as it did in 1968 when it came out. It's still all those themes and all the things it talks about in this film are just as relevant now as they were back in the 60s. And it's never been not not relevant. It's always manages to be ahead of its time even back then, and it's still kind of a good warning of the future. Still has so much like influence on not just filmmaking but in like storytelling in general. And I'll get into it soon enough, but yeah, there's something for everyone in this film, and I feel there's something many people will take out of it and throughout their interpretation of it, whether you're exposed to it really young or if you've seen it quite recently, you'll experience this film in a different way through like what you've grown up with, and you'll take out from it different things. But ultimately, I think it's one of those things that you'll make you sit back and think and kind of just kind of experience. It kind of makes you. What's the word? My words are failing, but I'll get to it in a second. Um, just how experiencing something from someone else's perspective, like a point of view from someone that's lesser than you, experiencing it through their eyes. And this film kind of does that, both politically, thematically, and all sorts. So yeah, that is the reason why I thought that we had to talk about it, and I had to pick it as a benchmark.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. It's one of my favourite franchises as well. Like, I think it's like the way that the original series of films went is a bit weird. like, like with because
Exactly.
the second one is about like three super intelligent apes and them like getting into politics. It's like, and it's like it's so bizarre, but yeah, I don't know. I think like the original series of films, they start off with a really great like all time classic, and then they just get so absurd that it's hard not to love them. But the
Mm.
reboots, I think I really love them. I think they're probably the best examples of like a modern reboot, along with like Creed. And yeah, I think I took something different from it this time because Planet of the Apes to me has always been in like it's always been about that sort of allegory for like racism and classism and all of that kind of stuff. But watching it this time, and I think it's maybe because I watched that documentary that I told you guys about in the week, Dog War. So like
Mhm.
Dog War is about like it's about the dog meat trade in Korea, and it's about these two American soldiers who are going out there and they're basically trying to shut it all down. And although like although sort of like the dog meat trade, like I mean it's not something I'm gonna say is like right or like it's an awful thing that exists, but there was this guy on there and he was talking about how like his dad started a restaurant and now he's taken over the restaurant and his son works for the restaurant, and he was like, oh, if this becomes illegal then I can't get another job and all of this kind of stuff. And I was kind of thinking like for someone who sees it as normal, he's kind of a victim of it all like becoming illegal, even though what he's doing is really bad. The reason that made me see Planet of the Apes in a different light is just because Charlton Heston's character is such a dickhead, and I was kind of thinking like as much as this is about like that allegory for racism and classism and everything else, it's also about like seeing the humanity in him, like despite him being such a knob. Because it's like those moments, like, you know, the one where they're in the field and he's like, oh, if this is the best they've got, we'll be running this place in a couple of weeks and all that. I was thinking like you left Earth just to take over another planet. Like you deserve what's coming to you. And then it actually does come to him, and it's like, oh no, to be fair, that is awful.
Yeah, but I mean, like, in all seriousness, he hated people like from the beginning of the movie. He was like being poetic while he was smoking. Like, man, people suck. Essentially, is what his fucking monologue was,
Yeah.
and it was like, man, because people suck, I'm so glad I'm away from people. These lot are these three other people that are with me are all right, but I'm glad I'm away from people. Thank God for that.
I think that was the thing for me though, because he did this thing about how he wanted to leave Earth because he was sure there was something better out there, and then what he found was something he could rule, and he was happy enough. And it was like, oh, just you're awful.
I mean, his character is quite problematic in itself because of really with what he does with like Nova and like what he wanted to do essentially with her name is Stuart, right? I feel like it's keeping it wrong, but it's Stuart.
Yeah, I think that was maybe maybe an idea to like sort of maybe act as an example of how like language changes over time.
Okay, fair enough, because
that's how I took it.
But like, okay, because but somebody else like
Stuart's mom. that's yes.
Anyways, but like because he was quite a terribly misogynistical character, anyways, and it was like, all right, yeah, I mean, the film unfortunately is of its time, and like sort of like maybe like certain thoughts of it are of the time, but those thoughts are still very how to explain it. Oh, we're very close to nuclear war and the planet being destroyed. And that's like, yeah, that's about apparent and prevalent throughout most of history. And it's like, it's the joke about it, because I remember I did watch this when I was like a long time ago. I couldn't remember it all. But like the way that they treat the apes treat each other, and it's like, you know, he looks his nose down at chimpanzees. I was like, oh, so there's racism in ape culture as well. Okay, cool. I was like, all right, it's very. I was like, all right, yeah, it's very prevalent there. And it was like, it's an interesting self-reflection of society by man, but also just by ape. And by ape, it's still very similar to man. And it's just like, it's so, it's like it's right there. But because they're in terrible prosthetic, or I won't say terrible prosthetics. All right, sorry, that's a bit unfair. I think I did give it.
The makeup I will defend very much, because it was groundbreaking at the time, and sure, like it's a bit dated now, but I think the only thing that dates it, in my opinion, is the speaking.
Yeah.
The eye makeup, like the expressions and like the frowning, everything is fucking perfect. It's just when they speak, they don't have the mouth perfectly.
I was about to say I would agree with that. It's mainly because Dr. Zaius' teeth looked like really, because he was talking, he was going up and down, but you could tell the teeth were like looked like polystyrene, and it was just a bit off for me. I was like, I
Yeah,
know
well,
he's supposed to be like the antagonist character, but it looks like well a puppet, and it just like something. It just to pull me
Yeah.
out of it just too much.
It
But
is. It is a bit of a shame because like you are right, Ben. Like it. I mean, I suppose kind of the hair as well, but not so much. But yeah, if they just had
it's
like
well,
some kind of like some tiny motors around the mouth just to move their
it would
mouths
have
as
been
they were speaking, it would have been perfect.
perfect. Yeah, but
yeah,
getting away from that. Sorry, I was gonna say it's just like it's. But because they put on the cover of it's an ape, it's not actually a person, but it's obviously a person. So it's like, oh right, yeah. So they're trying to be very smart about it. Gotcha. I gotcha. I see what you're doing. Gotcha. Right there. Yeah. So it's yeah. It's a lot more. I would say fun than I remember it to be, and the influence of this film just for The Simpsons has been too much. Right? We've had the influence from just us making the jokes from last week. It was way too much. I remember. Oh, but there's actually more influences from that. There's the scene where like they try to stop going to church, and the kids were like the men, and like the parents were like on the horses capturing the kids to take them to church. I was like, all
no,
right,
yeah,
yeah, I forgot. Yeah, there's so many references to this from Planet of the Apes. It's like it's so influential. I just can't remember how many influences that this film has, but
yeah,
it's a lot. It's so much.
yeah, very much. So,
Wait, Pat, how about you? How did you find the film?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
and Pat was
So, this was my first time watching. I'd seen sort of clips, so I what they sort of looked like, and it's something from the scene. I just think of Chewbacca when you think how the suits are made and stuff. So I think they look pretty good for its time. I know some people are thrown off with the voice and the movement of the mouth, but like we've seen probably a film worse for that last week.
Last week.
Well, yeah, because I watched the dub for the film last week.
You can't judge it on that.
But no, I really enjoyed it. Like I did poke fun at the ship at the beginning of it. It's sort of like it was more like once it landed or crashed. This thing is tiny. It's had loads of people sleeping in it. The fact that it filled up with water, but the arse of it was basically as deep as a puddle. I thought that it wasn't points off, but it was something that made me laugh. But from that moment, I thought it was such a well-made film. Like the fact that the roles were reversed, but there were things that I'm sure about, like especially the ending. So like when the Statue of Liberty's there. So are they did someone decide to transport the Statue of Liberty to?
No, that's the big twist, man. So that the big twist is that they were on Earth all along.
Yeah. So like
yeah.
also it was a question about it, right? I know this is a nitpick. I know it's gonna sound silly as well. Are you sure that's the American Statue of Liberty and not the French one? Because if it landed on
the French one, isn't it?
well, there's two Statue of Liberties, but it's funny.
Yeah,
funny.
they're both on Earth though. That's the point.
Yeah. One's on the move, but it would be funny because if they were in France and they were speaking French and he doesn't know French, it doesn't matter that he could speak. He's like, "What the fuck are you saying? It's all in French. I don't get it."
So then that brings up the next question: is like they think they've been flying but they've been flying for what 2,000 years into the future.
This is the question that Emmanuel. I was going to ask him, Emmanuel, but like we'll let him do his opening statements first if he's Emmanuel. Yeah.
I'm not finished my opening statement.
Oh, sorry, Pat, sorry.
Yeah, so they were just like two sort of about it. Like, I wasn't entirely too sure. Like, it was like, oh, so they've decided to take flight and they've flown for so long, Earth solely, and then landed back on it. Which then sort of, when you think of it happened over the time that the film has been, it makes sense. Like how basically fucked up the environment to the point that you can't grow anything in areas that you used to be able to. And it's sort of, then when I look at the reboot films, it makes even more sense. It's based the time the apes have gotten intelligence and taken over, and the humans have stopped them being able to talk. So I was like, in a way, the reboot sort of took the, instead of wiping it clean, they've sort of added texture to the original film.
Yeah.
So I think they've hand in hand, they've all worked really well off each other. I do want to watch the other films because I know Charlton Heston did this second one before he stopped doing them.
Mm-hmm.
They do get a bit weird. No, they're not what you'd expect.
They're not all on. It's annoying.
They're not all on Disney Plus.
Well, I couldn't find some of them.
I thought they were all on there.
Oh, were they? I might not have been looking properly then.
Annoying, but
I think the
typical
third
Disney.
one's not on there. I think the second one, like Return of the Planet of the Apes, or is it
Oh,
like
so it's Beneath, Escape,
yeah, Escape,
and Conquest and Battle.
I don't think I saw Battle, but I might have to double check myself.
Yeah, Battle is the weakest, but I think Escape from and Conquest are the most interesting ones, in my opinion. Beneath as well is actually, but yeah, they're all worth your time.
But yeah, like even during the film, like I was enjoying it to a point where I was thinking about the other films we had. As like the other two films that deserved a bonus point, and Maverick. Like I ruled it because it's a classic. I don't think it needs another bonus point. Sorry, Rob.
Wait, what? I missed that. You lagged a bit.
He's lagged again. He's still lagged. Pat, you're lag. He's going hypersleep. We'll see him another 3,000 years, maybe.
I will say actually, the dude who was mummified on the spaceship, that was brilliant makeup.
Oh yeah. Oh, poor old Kristen Stewart. Yeah.
Yeah. That looked fantastic, man. That was like, yeah.
He looks so happy, and he wants to say something so like ingenious, but it just stopped at a point of time.
Oh, God damn it! We'll never know.
No. But okay. As I was talking about it, Emmanuel is Emmanuel around because he will let him do his opening statement around? Or...
Yeah, I'd like to hear what he thought.
I am here. Give me one moment.
If it's not easy for you,
sorting out a lot of stuff. Sorry, I'm here. I'm not an ninja. Climbing up on the balcony. Sorry. Can you see the light? Okay. Sorry, it's I'm gonna. Sorry about this. I should have said it. Give me a minute. Anyway.
You're back.
Yeah, back if you need a minute, man.
I'm okay now. Thanks and sorry. Scared some family members. So yeah, I did initially have like certain problems or things that annoyed me, but as I got into it, I was just like, to be honest, it doesn't matter. I can say some of the stuff, but I'll say that kind of later. Main thing, opening statement. It was an interesting thought experiment with a lot of I think good commentary on different issues, especially at the time. It is interesting, like many things, that it felt ahead of its time in many ways. in the kind of commentary it was making, except, I guess, sexism.
Yeah,
So
100%.
that was still very much of its time, but everything else was pretty much ahead of its time. So it's just like, so that did throw me off with the certain kind of sexist comments. But otherwise, yeah, it was an interesting kind of commentary on the church, race, equality, and all sorts of things, evolution. Like it, it was, yeah, it. I think, yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I didn't. The reason I didn't enjoy it as much was not because of. There might have been a few small things that didn't quite make sense or were very 60s. Um, but but it was more that there was few characters who just annoyed me. Like the main character, there's many times he just really annoys me. Um,
Yeah,
um,
he is an annoying piece of work to Taylor. I mean, I agree with you there, Tiffany.
yeah, I mean, he could be worse. Like he's not like a complete dick or something, but he was annoying for me. And there were a few things in it that are very classic of just real life, even like these days, of people just being really stubborn, refusing to listen, et cetera, et cetera. All the classic things of human society and culture, but flipped in the culture of apes, which have taken on humans' culture in their own way. And yeah, that stuff, I don't want to watch. I don't want to sit through that kind of frustrating stuff in real life, let alone in the film. But it also shows that they did that well. They did do that quite realistically. So yeah, there's a lot of good points about this, and I was really, really impressed by especially the makeup side of production, like production in general. I know there was some like funny things, but for the '60s, they did amazing. I personally feel like, I mean, the many stuff we've seen here in Film Club and I, like in the '80s, '70s, or in many different ages, but this was amazing. Um, I would like to ask Ben, the film you showed us that your parents really liked, but had someone in a costume. What year was that?
Oh, Trog, that came a couple of years later. That came in like 75, I think. I could be wrong.
And and this is what I'm saying. So Chalk, even though yes, it was more lower budget, and this film still, I think, still holds the record, or is up there in terms of makeup budget, even for now in terms of inflation. But the the
Yeah, you have to
the,
remember it's before Star Trek, the films, and Star Wars, obviously. So this kind of like set the bar, and then obviously
yeah.
Star Wars kind of took that and took it forward. Like Pat mentioned, Chewbacca was such a even more improvement from this. So it just was
Mhm.
built from that.
I mean, true, yeah. Like, yeah. But yeah, they did so well. Like, and yeah, for the time, I was like, you know what? That's really impressive that they pulled all that off. And there was only like one or two minor moments where I thought, oh, the lighting's a bit funny or something. Where there was like a beach scene near the end. I think they were losing light. So it's kind of what it is. But otherwise, I was just like, yeah, this is produced very, very well.
See,
Like sound, visuals, yeah.
I'm not like trying to take away from it too much, but the just the thing about it being good for its time, I'm like, well, it was the same year as 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah, but were the
But
apes in that better than this? I think they're on par, and I think they're better.
I wouldn't say like it's not necessarily like an apes versus apes thing, but just on like production value as a whole, 2001, like that holds up to today's standards. Like that's
well, that can get a 10.
Yeah, and also like it was a
Yeah, Rob
Kubrick
Pickett, we'll
film as
see.
well, right? So it's like because Kubrick was like, no, we gotta film him hitting the sand and going, "You maniacs! I need you to film it 100 times." It'll be a bit different of film, right? So it's like, it's a lot of things about it.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
But yeah,
I'm just saying, I don't know if for its time is as much of a thing.
Oh, I think it is, because it's like you have like literally 2 hours or however long the film is. Probably an hour of it is of just the apes, compared to 2001's like 5-minute sequence of just apes just singing the tone, and the rest of it is all in the spacecraft, which obviously how good the spacecraft aesthetics were in those days was like, the whole budget of 2001 went into making this science fiction aesthetic of deep space and Hal the robot, versus compared to Planet of the Apes, the ship's only in the first 10 minutes, so that's why they could only make the nose cone of the ship, and everything else was like it's film on location, let's film on the sets for the Ape Village kind of thing. So they had to kind of use their budget really smartly, because they could only do certain things at certain times, and just like, we can film this part of America which just is so barren and desolate, and then the rest will be on the Fox studio lot.
I was say, was it filmed in like the Grand Canyon or something? Because it had such a
Yeah,
big.
it's nearby.
It is
Yeah.
nearby. Okay, cool. Because
Yeah,
I was thinking, where could they have filmed that where they could get such a big sort of like emptiness about it? And it's
Yeah.
like, no, because they needed it to be like emptied, because that's kind of the point. But they couldn't have too much like shrubbery, because it was like, oh, it's a desolate place. So it's like,
No life
so
fence.
so it's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, but it makes sense if it's near like the Grand Canyon, because it's rocky, but it's like, it's nothing growing there, so it's cool. It's there is like generally speaking, the design and like production for the film are quite okay. Makeup wise, we've already discussed. Maybe not so much, but that's just me. But like generally speaking, everything else, like the way that the houses looked, and the way that like they were still growing corn. Every futuristic place seems to be growing corn, if it's even
The
with
corn
myrrh
does grow.
or something else.
Yeah.
Where they're eating those weird, like, sort of like not cantaloupes. And it's like everything else looked quite neat. And it's like everything had its own, like, style. And I feel like that's very, like, good for, like, I guess, thematical reasons. Because, like, you could tell, like, with, like, the scientists, with, I would like to say Cornelius and his wife and stuff, like they have the green, which is like for the science, and like when you have Dr. Zayas being the political guy and all of his like religious like preacher person as well. He's got like sort of like very clean like sort of robes, and it's like like all the production for like the clothing and the stuff. It all fits quite well, and that's like that's a very good point for him. And because all of it kind of makes sense, something about him wearing his like rags and him with Nova, so because she doesn't speak and she's just there to look pretty, and it's like something about that. It's just like I was like, all right, what was the point of her character? And it was point of her character was sharp, look pretty. That's it. And it was like, oh, that's 60s. And it's like, that's like, all right, yeah, she's literally just a piece of. She's not really a character. She's just there, and it's like, oh yeah, I've taught you to smile.
I mean, I think she did well for having no lines, to be honest.
Yes, that's true. But like, it was a bit unfortunate that if she learned to speak, I feel like that would have had a better impact. And it would have been more scarier for Dr. Zayas, because he realized, oh no, from scriptures, something, the beast who stands and all that other stuff. He'll be like, oh no, it's spreading. That would have been a lot more interesting to see. And if that actually happened, and I was like, I get it now. That's what he's worried about. That this evil man is like come like the devil and spreading like the talking man again, and it's like, oh, I get it now. That's why he's a zealot. And it's like, yeah. Well, I mean, like, there's a whole problem with their hierarchy system, anyways, especially with the judge scenes. But we'll get into that in a second. But it's just like seeing them act the way they act with their like sort of, I think it's called like a caste system where like only certain like apes do certain jobs, and
Yeah.
it's just like, oh yeah, but it's just like they have their own rules and stuff, but those rules kind of they kind of suck, and they're just terrible, and like, oh, I was gonna say they're terrible people. No, they're terrible apes, and it's like, but you know what I mean? It's not. Yeah, it's also just a
It's-
reflection. Yeah,
Yeah.
it repeats the same phrase of it's a reflection of fairly modern societies, like certain people who do that and stuff, and it's like seeing it again, and it's like, yeah, it makes sense seeing it as an adult compared to seeing it as a kid, where, oh wow, these apes have guns,
Yeah.
which actually is, which
Guns for what? Oh,
well, I
actually.
mean, well, actually, it's actually why I removed the pointless story. They should have had like easier access to the guns where he escaped like the first time. That's I didn't agree with that. They did.
Oh, you think they could have shot Taylor point blank as soon as he escaped?
Well, I mean, like if you know, okay, because
Very
it's a thing about.
American of you.
Well, it's very, it's
Okay.
oh, they're in the States, right?
Mm.
Like I'm pretty sure
Yes.
I'm pretty sure if it's because it's the American Statue of Liberty,
Yeah.
the river that they were going down was technically the Hudson, and that's like it's just funny to think that the little area that they walked around was just like Manhattan, and you just walked
Yeah.
over to from like there, and I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But I digress. It's because they did eventually get the guns to shoot at him, but if they know that there was a dangerous animal around, they could have got the guns faster. I feel like it's like there's no procedures for these things, even though they've had these like wild animals around for such a long time. These man beasts, and it's like and it's like I feel like they should have better protocols. If a gorilla escaped from the zoo in modern times now, I feel like it's gonna get shot.
Yeah.
It's just a bad thing, but it's like, yeah, it's probably what's gonna happen, and it's a thing. It's a thing about because they have guns, and because they have guns, I feel like they should have a better concept on how to use them. But that's
Yeah. There's like
It's-
multiple reasons like this why I gave the story lower. Because the production wise, even though it's really good, like story wise, there's a lot of kind of questionable things, or the way they chose to do them. One thing I would say I was impressed by, not impressed, more about worried about the crew. Classic kind of, I guess, filmmaking. Not in modern times. Like when they was filming the kind of desert scenes, especially at the start, people passed out multiple times because of just how hot it was. It's just like, oh my goodness,
well, I
why are
mean,
you letting people do this?
that's why they jumped into the water naked straight away without doing the correct scientist thing of going, is this water radioactive? I mean, is this water safe, or is it actually water? It's not like some sort of like acidic like liquid.
Oh my goodness,
I feel
they acted like space cowboys. They did not act
it
like actual astronauts.
was a bit silly.
Like, were these actually trained astronauts, or were they just selected as guinea pigs to do this? Obviously, like me and Camilla have our own theories, which I'll go through afterwards. But like, were they just selected as guinea pigs? Were they actually proper trained astronauts? Because they did not act like it, or at least Taylor didn't. But
Yeah.
most of them didn't. I was sorry. Carry on.
No, I just don't agree. It's just like, but because they're supposed to be technically sensible astronaut people, they should be like generally more cautious about it and a bit more smarter about it. But it's just like
Yeah.
it's maybe it's one of those. It's like you can there's a lot of things that story wise you could nitpick about this and that, but it's like I don't think that was the point of the story. But it's like
Yeah, it's not.
I mean, but it's like it's a thing that you could go. It helps it. It would help like them like how to explain it. It would help like them understand like if this world was a bit more like how much different this world from their world it was. And it's just like, because like they saw other humanoids and they
Well,
weren't
yeah, point.
shocked. They weren't as shocked as they could have been. It's like, well, there are other human creatures. I didn't think I did. I mean, like, because especially because with the 60s, I feel like a lot of aliens are little green men, and I feel like I didn't. There's a whole like conversation about to be had of like, why did you not get shocked to see that there were other human-like creatures on another planet? Well, because you think this is another planet, right? They don't think this is Earth. You should be way more shocked that there are other human-like creatures existing, and it's like,
Yeah.
and it's like,
Also, oh, sorry, Karen.
no, go on.
Like the point you raised up is so true. Like when they did the test about the soil, like I don't know like what test he was doing, but he should have realized or had a line saying something like, "Wait, this soil is just like Earth's."
Well, oh wait, no, you're talking about the beginning where they first like he leaves like a little like the American flag on the side, right? He
Yeah.
was checking. That part made sense because he was going, oh, actually, the air's breathable. So I was like, okay, that's fine. And I was like, okay. Then afterwards, it's like, all right, but it's not. It's like this water is like salt water, so we can't drink this water. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. Did they do that test afterwards when they just jumped butt naked into the water? I don't know.
No.
Maybe they skipped that part out. But it's like I feel like they should have a little bit more sense on it. It's like
I think it's one of those things. Is like it depends on how it is edited. If it's a jump cut, I can usually expend some disbelief, like it's passage of time. Because obviously, when you see a scene shot and cut, you can see this something happens here, and then 20 minutes later they're here, and then sometimes you get the fade, as in time really passes quite slowly. But in this case, if it was kind of like you see that, and then next shot is you see them jumping in. I think I'd have to rewatch the scene to be like understand the film language there, because I think if it's a complete shot of like Charlton Heston seeing the trees and then jumping in the water, that's a plot hole. However, if it's a different couple of cuts before that, you can kind of use your imagination to think that they stopped, they tested this thing and did this and that, and then they jumped in as soon as they knew. Kind of thing. That's just my like filmmaking brain would be like, yeah, it's just more like how it's cut together. Like
okay,
it's not just immediate rather than 5 minutes.
That explains one thing that I did think was slightly weird. Because of what you say, I did think of it that way, but now that you said it out loud, it made me go, "Oh right, it's probably a filmmaking decision." It's when they because they realized something stole their clothes. And they got some of their clothes back, and they're like looking around. It jump cuts into them finding that like little farm. To the farm where the other humans were like eating the corn and melons, and it was a jump cut. And I was like, wow, they found that like village farm place really fucking fast. But it's like makes sense because they don't need to have the extra monologuing of them walking through like and looking for the village. So I think I might actually have to give you a point back for that because I didn't realize it was a film. That's a filmmaking choice, right? I didn't think of it that way. Okay.
I mean,
go
on.
I was just going to say is that the jump cut is obvious because you can see Dodge, Taylor, and Landon all suddenly have more of their clothing back. They've found their fragments. They've started to put these bits of clothing back on themselves, and they're casually eating. And it's like the whole point. Like they see the humans obviously the first time, and they're just kind of like blasé about it. And it's kind of like, okay, maybe they did. Obviously, they would have seen them before, and they've kind of been following them to get to this point. And they're saying, "Shit, look, there's actually humans on this planet. What's going on?" And it's just like they're following them. And then, like 20 minutes later, they're getting their clothes back, and then another 20 minutes, they get this. They're just observing the humans just doing their thing and just following them, going. Eventually, get to the field, and eventually get to the corn section, and then they're like, yeah, wow, interesting. That's how I interpret it. Obviously, in a different like modern filmmaking, they'd kind of like you'd see the little bits and pieces like in certain Like I would make sure they can do like an Edgar Wright style quick cut thing where they just get the clothes and they just grab this and that and they just these close ups of their eyes and they're just running and then they're at the field. But that's modern editing compared to like old school editing.
Yeah. There's also, and I don't even have a problem with that. There's, again, most of this stuff doesn't matter. But, like, sorry, they, I want to explain it. So, yeah, you have all those kind of jump cuts and whatnot. But, yeah, one, like you said before, they leave a lot to kind of suspension of disbelief. I was just like, maybe they did this, maybe they did it. And sometimes they'll say things or do things in a way that make it seem like they didn't actually do the thing that you could be suspended, use your disbelief, like suspension of disbelief, or just imagine that, yeah, they did do that thing. Um, but one thing that made me laugh, and I think it's just the way it was all cut together and how they shot it. And I was just like, what is going on? So they see the group of humans down in the fields. Now, as far as we know, maybe this is the first time they've got to like see them in this particular place. So they've been following them, but they saw them here. Now, all of these melons and stuff, they're harvesting them. But before they properly started harvesting the melons and eating them, not Landon, but who was the other guy's name?
Dodge.
Dodge, yeah,
Dodge.
Dodge.
You just see Dodge randomly eating a melon, and I was like, did he check if this is poisonous? Like what? Like what?
Yeah,
And
that
then,
goes,
and
it
then the
goes
next,
before what I was saying.
I feel like at a certain point of time, their equipment was all broken. So even if he wanted to check if it was poisonous, he couldn't.
Yeah,
Just,
it was
but
still
he's,
that broken.
yeah, because like I mean, he saw them eating it, and he was like, "It should be
but he
fine,
was
right?"
eating it before he saw them eating it.
Oh, was he? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I don't know, maybe
yeah.
not.
But I think it's one of these funny cut things
Maybe
because
not.
Yeah,
or how
exactly. It's part of that, isn't it? It has to be.
but then the next time you look at them, so you look away, you see the humans, they look back, and then I think either Taylor or Landon, I think suddenly Landon's eating a melon. I don't know where he got it from. He just picked it up from the floor. Okay. And then they look away and look back, and now Taylor's also eating some. It's like, where did you get these melons from? Are you just picking them off the floor? Like there's no trees around you. It was more of a funny thing. It just made me laugh because like after you do have a lot of comedy of errors which weren't funny to me, which were just more annoying. But it just made me laugh. I was just like, just magic melons appearing out of nowhere. But cool. Let's just go along with it.
Yeah, I guess it is more of like, yeah, it's one of those things that you kind of like, you have to suspend a lot of disbelief to get from that bit to that bit. But I guess obviously the time that they go from when they land to get here and there's a lot of time jumps because a lot in this day and age you'd probably put like a caption on the screen saying like 2 days later or 5 years later or something like that, and it's one of those things that I really like pushed in the audience's face and like beaten down on you just to know, yeah, this is where we are. This is where we are here. This is the next bit. So yeah. See, those days you kind of like, okay, you kind of accept they landed on Wednesday and then they're at this place on Friday, and then by the time they meet the apes, it's next Monday kind of thing. So you kind of have to use a lot of mental gymnastics to try and figure it out. But it's kind of like it doesn't really ruin the story. It's just one of those things. But I feel it probably was explained really well in the novelization, because obviously when in the book format and the literary like format of like on novels, you can explain that this is Taylor and Landon and Dodge landed on so and so, and then a couple of days later they eventually found this tribe of humans, and then so and so. And after that, it's more expressed more clearly on the written form sometimes. Certain things. So yeah.
I think the only bit where I felt it was stretching sort of how far I could suspend my disbelief is that the battery in the doll lasted thousands of years.
That's a fair point.
Was it a
However,
doll though? Wasn't it a string pull?
yeah, was it a string pull like Woody?
But even then, though, surely
You didn't see a rest of it.
Oh right, yeah, that's true. It would have
What lasted thousands?
The doll.
yeah the mama doll.
Mama.
Yeah, it was.
To be honest, how many years does it take for plastic to properly erode? Because
the voice
think-
box wouldn't be plastic though.
Yeah, that would be metal. You're right. It would be like rusted up. To be fair, if it was metal.
It would mean, yeah, the doll. Oh, sorry, I
Yeah,
didn't hear you.
the doll would have been porcelain, like the body of it, but the actual voice box, like if it was like Woody the cowboy, it would have been half stainless steel and iron and steel. With
Yeah,
the string that would have eroded. The string part would have like been forever messed up.
Yeah, I agree with you, Rob.
Yeah, so that is it kind of works, but at the same time it doesn't by real world standards.
But I mean, I guess it's a question of like because it was in the cave, maybe it wasn't like hit with like the effects of like time and nature because it was.
And it did have the hair as well. Don't forget, because the hair would have been the first to go.
Well, no, I mean, like I feel like plastically, it's. I mean, if it's
if it's plastic,
like,
but horsehair would have been used in dolls in the 60s, I think.
Yeah, but like you see, have you not seen some of those like really scary like porcelain dolls that are like in museums? They still have their hairs on them, and it's like ever eroded away. But it's because it's in like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's in the glass box. But like in this case, it was like. Well, I would say covered, but it was like encapsulated inside that cave. So like, no, like nature would have got to it, maybe, or maybe that hole was actually like a bunker, like in Fallout, and that's probably what it is. But I'm like, but that's pushing it. But that's pushing it again as well. But it's like there could be some explanation for it, but it wasn't properly explained. I just can't think of it currently.
This film, to be honest, I probably at that point had completely switched off to trying not to just pay attention to all those kind of things. Because from the beginning, it was very clear. This film it's not about being scientifically or practically accurate.
Yeah, they couldn't technically do it even if they wanted to do it because of the limitations.
Yeah, about doing it just to fit the plot. From the moment there was just like, yeah, and this is the thing, like using the theory of relativity, which is very true, time dilation. It's like, okay, cool. You're saying all this stuff. That's completely correct. And then he's like, yeah, it's been 2,000 years. And I was like, wait, what the crap? That don't sound right.
The thing is, I don't really know closely enough. Like, obviously, listen instead of probably my main experiences of that. So it's one of those things that's kind of like, wait, did they just were they asleep for a certain amount of time? Do they wake up and then they go for a micro sleep and then they wake up again and then they go to do a long sleep again and then wake up every intermediate time? Or what? Was it one sleep?
So the way they explained it, because by their calculations, basically they kind of made a logic, and even though it didn't line up quite with science even at the time, they were consistent with their own logic. So they were asleep for they were traveling for 18 months and they were asleep for 12 months basically. So they were traveling for which then like I said it wasn't 2,000 years. It was like I can't remember. It was 2,000 years in general that had passed when they had landed back on Earth. But the point is, yeah, it was 6 months before he went to sleep. They went to sleep for 12 months, so they've been asleep for 18 months. And as far as they were concerned, they were around about 320 light years out, which if you do the calculations according to their own logic, that all lines up. Is consistent with what they were saying, with how they like did the science in the movie. So that was cool. The fact that they were considered, and they would have been around the when they say they're in as context in the kind of Orion constellation belt. The Orion constellation belt ranges from around about 140 light years to 1.3K light years. So it really is huge. It's like it really is. They could be anywhere within that. And it's like, yeah, that line where they're saying makes sense. But it's just kind of funny things that they leave out the script. Like they never say to us where they were meant to be going. So I get that, okay, somewhere in the Orion belt, whatever, Orion's constellation, they were meant to be heading that way. The guy was like, we weren't meant to land in the water. Okay, so were you meant to land on a planet? But then, obviously, after watching watching, like going through the film, like me and Camilla started thinking, were these people lied to and duped? Were they like some kind of guinea pigs or some kind of experimental just in case plan to send them to the future, basically?
Well, I mean, that is for example, a good question.
That's a good point.
I never thought of what was their initial mission. What was the basis of going to space?
I never got it as a mission, so it was kind of like, in my interpretation, it was like Star Trek. It was just to go into the unknown and see what happens. So that is an interesting point. The fact that Emmanuel thinks that the original, like the people that were in charge of setting up the Icarus mission and from the start, knew that if they set this course and directory, they'd go in and loop. They'd eventually go around and come back to Earth. By the time it takes them to do it would be 2,000 years in the future. So that is it. That would explain that plot hole. If by the ship's data and the original programming and the set directory was correct, it was all a predetermined plan. It was just go around in the loop. However, but obviously it's clear that Taylor, Dodge, and Landon don't know that. They think they're going to another galaxy.
Because they didn't, like, obviously, again, the suspension of disbelief, but we didn't see any suits. And this wasn't like going to space wasn't necessarily some new thing. As we know, they went to the moon the next year. There's a whole space race. They knew basic things, but we saw no suits there. It was a very minimal type, I guess, ship, and I know that's more for budget reasons, but just assuming that this is, how it is in the world. Like, how, like, if they found something, how were they, like, what I'm trying to say is that, like, the people who originally set them out, did they basically say to them, oh, yeah, the coordinates that are put in that you're going to, it's going to be a planet that you can go to? Like, Taylor was under the impression that Steward, which he annoyingly called Cargo, was going to be their Eve. I mean, why send only one woman?
Yeah. Send three were in one man. That'd be more logical. But yeah, I know what you mean. But that's the sexist part. I kind of like the thing that's I feel is the only thing outdated for the film, as you guys mentioned, is like how women were treated. And I think only Zira is the only strong female character in the film, technically.
Exactly.
Because she's a normal person. She's just like she's headstrong and she thinks for herself and this and that. And obviously Stuart doesn't have a chance to do that. And Nova barely speaks and she just looks pretty and that's all she does. So
yeah, it's the head of her heart. But the rest aren't anyway. But yeah, it's like, did they tell them, oh, the place you're going into is gonna be fine for like breathing and stuff and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But there's no way. I'd say no way.
Technically, there would be no way for them to know where they'd go. Even at that point in history, is that in the 60s, you wouldn't know. You can set a course to a galaxy, but you won't know what you're going to end up with. There's no guarantee you'll be able to land on the planet, let alone get out and breathe the air on it.
A galaxy far away.
Yeah.
And if, like, they because the thing is, they could have plotted a point to a planet, and in the thing is, obviously, I'm assuming a lot of things. So assuming the technology, obviously, this technology is much more advanced than what was available at the time in real life. Because when they left, it was like 1972. So, like, maybe if it was so advanced, more advanced than our own, which it would have to be, they found they said, oh yeah, we found a planet far away that has the kind of stuff, and they had some kind of James Webb type telescope, who knows, whatever. But yeah, it all kind of reads a bit funny when none of them seem to be knowledgeable enough to actually know where they were meant to be going and what they're meant to truly be doing. And it just sounds like, you know what? With what's happened when they got back, and also the worries about the Cold War, nuclear war, the whole kind of things about bunkers, and really like and making sure you're ready for this Fallout 76, not Fallout 76, just Fallout type world. Sorry.
Yeah, please don't mention that game. That's the worst of them.
I know. I don't know why that's in my but Fallout type world, or Silo, that show as well. Though that anyway, point is, like, maybe this was one of the kind of, just in case, let's do this, and then we've got some kind of backup, or one of the many things we're trying to do in case humanity just bites the dust kind of thing. But that's just my thought, because otherwise it's too many kind of like, yeah, like you said, how did they end up back at Earth? The chances of something malfunctioning, going through, whether it be a wormhole or whatever it is, they were going in the opposite direction of Earth, and then somehow ended exactly back, when if it was just a natural malfunction, they would have easily missed Earth, like more chances than not. So it does feel like this was on purpose, but they weren't in on the plan.
I mean, like, did they like aim it wrong and it could have like hit an offshoot and like circled back around?
Not,
Yeah.
not. mm.
No, I'm just fucking with you. I'm just fucking with you. I was I
I'm muted. I just realised I have a theory of why that happened, because obviously it cuts to obviously when Taylor and everyone wakes up and they've got beards and it's like the time jump. Something went wrong. Something caused them to suddenly wake up, and then obviously their crap is happening. Shit's going down. I reckon, in my opinion, something went wrong for them to suddenly wake up, for starters. However, I thought before that, I think like the the programming of the ship perhaps had this built-in like safety precaution, this kind of like thing where it kind of like, okay, the mission is jeopardized. Let's go back to Earth. The coordinates back to planet Earth. We have to completely go back the way we came. It can completely changes gears and then changes coordinates, and the ship diverts. For some reason, it goes back, and I think that is the kind of the reason why they go back to Earth anyway, because the programming of the ship takes them back to planet Earth anyway. I think the plot hole would be like to say that the coordinates did not alert them they were back home. That's the only issue with that theory, because it just tells you the time that's passed rather than the fact that where they are. So if they knew we were back to Earth, obviously that would be it, wouldn't it? But I feel that that's the programming, kind of like the dead man switch, if you will. Something goes wrong with the mission, the ship's computer would just suddenly, okay, it's jeopardized, let's revert back to the course we were on and go back home. I think that's the Apollo missions definitely had that as well. If something went wrong, they would abort the moon landing, let's go back to planet Earth, which is what happened in Apollo 13, because as soon as they knew they couldn't do the mission, they went lap around the moon and then went back home.
Yeah.
So I feel that's it.
Yeah, it could be a bit of both. And yeah,
It's just
it's
it doesn't tell you that. Oh, great! Congratulations, Taylor and crew. You're finally back home. Your coordinates exactly where you started. It doesn't tell you that in the kind of grand scheme of things, but maybe because you could argue that in the manic of the crash, they don't see all the instruments properly, and there was damage to the readings and stuff. And only one panel which displayed the year was the only thing that was actually displaying correctly.
yeah. And if unlike to add on to that, if sorry, obviously we're just talking about theories here, but
That's right.
if they also were like lied to or whatnot, and were kind of like I say duped in a way, but also there was a malfunction and whatnot, it would kind of make sense that they didn't really act as we would expect astronauts would do or scientists would do.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they were trained up specifically for this, but they weren't the usual astronauts. They were basically guinea pigs.
Mm-hmm. Maybe, yeah.
And so they gave him the training, but it would make sense how Taylor made it past all the kind of tests and whatnot. Because
Yeah.
maybe they cared about the physical aspects. Because physically,
Mm-hmm.
he was fit enough for this mission. And as we could see, like he went through a lot of stuff, but he was still able to go through it. Um, but yeah, he didn't have the smarts that we would associate. So yeah, maybe they were just guinea pigs for this in the beginning.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, that makes the interesting argument for the rest of the films in the series. It kind of like it was kind of predetermined, and it's a kind of like a paradox in itself, where it's always destined to happen. It's a weird thing. It's the grandfather paradox. Without if something doesn't happen the way it's intended, it doesn't. It can't happen anyway. Which the trouble is in the third film, and Escape from Planet of the Apes. That is basically the thrust of the story. Is that uh, Zira and Cornelius go back in time, back to 1972, in in Taylor's ship, and literally they kickstart the ape evolution and revolution. You need to see it to understand it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does,
So is
wait,
this grandfather paradox is like if they don't
Wait.
go back in time, the apes won't become the apes we know in the year 3000.
does that explain the TV series?
The original series, yes. It's all
Oh,
linked.
okay.
But also
Oh,
the new
okay.
movie, the reboot. So Caesar,
Mm.
is there kind of a theory that they had a part to play in Caesar
In
coming?
the original Caesar, yes, and the Caesar and the Conquest of Planet of the Apes, but the reboots are like proper. It's night and day, different universes. There's a reboot in every way. Rises are not connected to the original film series, but the five original films mirror Rise, Dawn, and War, and Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes in terms of directory.
Oh, okay. Not including the other remake.
Not in the Tim Burton one is another.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I know that you like that one.
Shit,
There's no way you can make that work.
That was the first one I watched.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness!
I mean, it's the first one I remembered. Like, no, I watched this one like on
Yeah.
TV a long time ago.
Yeah.
But then I watched that one. I was like, is this what Planets of the Apes is about? Okay, it seems a bit different.
Yes and no.
It's
the weakest one. I have a soft spot for it because of Burton and everyone else involved. But yeah, it's not a patch on this in terms of story. The best thing about it is the makeup, because they kind of like fine tune the makeup from this film into what they have in 2001 and how good makeup was in the modern age before CGI took over. It was like perfected it in every way you can think of. So you kind of wish that the perfect film would have that makeup and this script, more or less.
Yeah.
So yeah, I might pick that one day for like if we do Bad Movie Round 2, It's just because it's a film I think is alright, but everyone else won't like it at all.
It's
But
not.
there's
It's a
bits in
trash
it.
film.
There's
It's not.
bits in it I felt that has like interesting ideas.
It's not as bad as I remember it, I guess. But it's like, yeah. So now we've talked about the potential and, well, essentially the more scientific stuff about this film. I feel like we've talked about the scientific side about it, but
Yeah.
I feel like we need to talk to the more about the more political side about this film, because it is
Yeah.
it's quite political as a film, and it really hits
Yeah.
to one of those scenes. This isn't like my favorite scene, but it's a very notable and funny scene for me. It's where they had the courtroom scene, and Taylor was there, and it was very interesting to see that scene, mainly because what's the name of the lady doctor again?
Zira.
Zira. I was thinking Zira, but it's not Zira. When Zira was explaining what they were, or more precisely, they were counter arguing with everything they were saying. It's like, if you're saying that this is like this, that makes sense that he is a human, or he is a human from our world, or he is a human from not our world. It doesn't make so. It's either one. You can't choose. It's either both. It's either one, or it's like, yeah, that's it. There's no other. There's no fucking third thing.
Yeah.
It's funny because it's more interesting because those orangutans, there were three of them purposely sat like one next to each other, and they were in a posture that I don't think most people really get until you really see it out loud. Is you saw one of them do this.
Oh yeah.
You saw one of them do this, and you saw one of them do this,
He
and it
knows
was like,
no
yeah,
evil.
yeah, see no evil, speak no evil. Or no, hear no evil, speak no. And it's such an interest. I mean, they did that like a little like wink to like the camera, I guess. But it's interesting.
It was improv as well, and they
Was it?
I did. Oh, let's keep this in. That's great.
I was about to say it's such a perfect thing for this film, because those people are supposed to be the judges of the Apes and of Taylor. But if they're judges and they're people in political power going, see no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil, that's terrible, because they're just that makes them terrible judges, and they're supposed to like listen, understand, learn, then judge. But because they haven't done that, and they're just like, oh, this is just heresy, and it's just like, wow, that's messed up. That's god damn, that's messed up. And it's like, but politically speaking, that is kind of what would happen if, let's say, we had a talking ape existing in this world. I don't know, maybe not quite the hear no evil, speak no evil, say no evil part, right? But like, if I don't know how it would work, but it makes everything that happened during that court case or court hearing was things that I can imagine people who would be lawyers saying, going like, he is a man, he's not an ape, he has no ape rights. And it's like, we are thinking like, he doesn't have you.
Like the traditional church or like Catholic church was involved, because Zarias was basically their pope.
I think that's probably my favourite thing, because I think that's even better than that, because that's more or less what happens with like citizenship tests over here, because it's like that whole bit where they're kind of like testing him on his knowledge of like their religion essentially, and obviously he doesn't know it, like he's just landed on their ship on their planet, so he can't regurgitate what it says in their sort of holy texts the way that they can. And because of that, they're going like, look, he can't think, like he doesn't know this. How can he be intelligent if he doesn't know this? Yeah. And that's exactly what citizenship tests are. Like, if I went and did a citizenship test, even though I've lived here for 34 years, most of it I'd be going, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. but that's what they judge people on. And it's like a very specific knowledge that he just hasn't had a chance to learn it yet, and that's what they're judging his whole kind of intelligence profile on. I thought that was a really interesting dynamic of that scene.
It just adds layers to it, right? Because like it's a whole thing about him being treated as a man, but not as a ape. Or I keep saying man. I won't keep saying man and human, but it's like he is human, but like they don't. That's the reason why they treat him that bad. As man, human, and ape man. Okay, let's say this. Okay, because he's human and not an ape man. It's a whole there's a whole level behind it because it's like because they are treating him as a lesser, even though he has the concept for like speak. Well, he didn't have it for a while until he recovered his like getting shot in the throat, which is man, I can't imagine getting shot in the throat and being able to recover to speak, right? But like fuck, like oof. But like but because he has intelligence, even though he can understand him fairly decently, they still treat him like a lesser, and they and there was no chance for the scientists to go, there could be more, it could be better, and it was very like scriptures and everything, and like prejudice and all that stuff, just like layers upon layers and layers of like, no, we can have him like castrated and like lobotomized like his friend. Well, I don't know if he was lobotomized, but like he had like, I mean, basically, right? But it's like it's like treat him like the animal that he is, and it's just like so much layers between, like on top of each one of just that particular scene, and it's just like, damn, it's so interesting to. It's just like watching it carefully. It's so interesting to see how much that is like. It's very. I would like to say it is quite a big political statement without being like overly in your face. Because again, there's the cover because it's like ape makeup, but it's like it's very apparent, and because it's so apparent, it makes it so. There's just like layers behind it, and I can't like without like watching it bit by bit and explaining each bit. Like it's so good though to see it like that, and it's like. It's interesting because there's a very high chance that because Dr. Zayas is the like pope of their like ape culture, I think there was a cover up beforehand because he knew about like some fairly intelligent like humans, but he covered it up like at least twice because in the scriptures they're saying, oh, we used to invite humans into the house because we could domesticate them. But it's a question of like, no, you can't domesticate humans, even though he saw the writing and he like covered it up with his foot, and it's like, oh, there's so much like,
like the people in the church leaders basically know that at the end of the day, the reason the world is as messed up as it is and the forbidden zone is the way it is because the folly of humans. Basically all the kind of war and stuff that they were worried about. I mean, I don't know if there was nuclear fallout, but the fact that it seems like most of the humans are in this kind of state, don't know how to talk, but most of the humans I assume are dead. Like they literally killed themselves off. And like he's saying at the end, he's just speaking facts. He's just like, look, why would I risk your kind breeding and populating the earth again when you will just destroy it again? Like no. Like we were warned about your kind. We're not gonna allow it. And I don't blame him from that point. It's the whole it's sorts of messed up, but he also has a point. If they watch humans destroy themselves and almost destroy the whole planet, would you want them to repopulate?
Yeah, that's why Zayas is such a compelling character to me, because he's the smartest character in the film, despite everything he does. He kind of like he knows he has to defend the status quo. He knows that this is the best thing for the apes, and he knows that this is the way it should be because it's the safest thing for them, and he kind of has to serve the establishment because of that. And that's kind of like the danger of like religion in the legal system as well, like we mentioned. It's kind of like the separation of church and state is so important because it kind of messes with the beliefs and the virtue and kind of like what is good and bad, and it gets all cloudy and muddled because of what they were thinking, what they believe versus the actual facts. And kind of like Zeus is constantly adjusting when like Dr. Zeus comes, obviously Taylor's existence, and he's just like, shit, this guy can speak. This throws a spanner in the works. We can't have that. So I have to figure out a way to kind of like, he's just an outlier. He's just a blip in the radar kind of thing. And so he's saying if he admitted that apes, we came from humans, blah blah, the humans came first, they were the smartest one, that would just mess up the whole society, and he's his position of power, and the orangutans and everyone and everything would be undone. And that's kind of a comment on the government and the political structure of our world right now. If things were changed the way they should be, it would kind of, there would be riots in the streets. People would really be up in arms, as we've seen. It's true. It's.
You know, I think one sort of example of how, I suppose, powerful Dr. Zeus is I think you only really realise it in hindsight, or you only realise it if you watch it knowing that the planet they're on is Earth. And it's the bit where Charlton Heston is sort of writing, and they're like, oh, he can't really write and all of this stuff, and he talks about flying there, and they're like, oh, how can you fly? Flying is scientifically impossible. And then he makes a paper aeroplane, and their minds are blown, and it's like, because watching it knowing that it's Earth, you're like, how can it be Earth and there's no remnants of aeroplanes? Like, it makes no sense. But then when you realise what Dr. Zeus's character is and how he's like hiding so much from the rest of the apes, it's like, oh, okay, so probably like the elite few do know about planes, but they've like perpetuated a myth that it's just impossible to fly, and even if you could fly, there's nowhere else to fly to.
Yeah, because there's nothing.
I really like that as a subtle kind of like, sort of, not a bit of world building, but like a sort of thing that informs that kind of like structure that they've got of like the elite few knowing everything and no one else, everyone else, I suppose, being given what they're told.
Yeah, it's the very political stance of what the needs of the many outweigh the few, and it's like, because it's a very unfortunate thing that, like, even when when he was talking to Zera's like nephew Cornelius, and he was like, hey, what about our future? This is important for the future. And he's like, oh boy, I think I just saved yours. And it's just like, oh, I see why. It's like technically still the antagonist, and he's still the bad guy technically, right? But because the way that it works for them, it's like, it's very, we keep things peaceful, we keep things calm. It's like that we've done for so many years, and because of the evilness that is humans, ape man can, like, live peacefully. We grow our crops, we stay here, we live normally. It's the humans that come and like steal our crops and like steal our things, and it's us. And it's like, yeah, again, it's just it's very much like, if humans died, he wouldn't mind, because he feel like because he's an ape man, he's fine. But it's just like, because he knows that because of the evilness of humans, like in his scriptures where he reads about it from like so many times ago, that they are the reason why this world is the way it is, and it's because of them the blame is existing. And it's like, it's so good to watch it again and seeing that there's a lot of things that obviously as a modern society we don't agree on. There's certain things like there's a bit push there. It's a bit push to like to wipe out a whole race is a.
But that's else. Quite relevant to now, though, right?
Yeah, but like
with like the rise of the far right across Europe, and everyone voting in governments that are telling them that like, oh, your issues are the people who aren't from the town that you're from, and like, oh, that's
Yeah.
the place. Everyone's electing Dr. Zaius now. Like,
Pretty much.
That's yeah, but like, who is the many and who is the few is the question, right? How many? Who is the people that we need to crush so like we can survive? It's a very messy statement, which is like I get why you say it's compelling, but unfortunately, it's just the wrong reasons, and just like because of that, it's just like I don't want. I want you to be like your musical Simpsons counterpart, but it's more happier. But like, unfortunately, it's just like it's just certain levels of that's kind of gross.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but I think that's the downbeat nature of the film was probably why it stands the test of time and why I like it, because it's so grim and bleak, and it's a mirror to like the world we are in now, and it's just like a distorted, messed up mirror of like this is what will happen to the world if we keep doing what we're doing to it. And so it's kind of like, even back in the 1968, it's kind of like, yeah, this is the danger the world's going to be, because the human race is a load of crap. So if we don't change, if we don't learn these lessons that these apes are telling us, then this is a future that is predetermined. It's something that will happen, and that's quite sad about it.
Sci-fi genre in a nutshell, really.
Exactly.
I think what Wes Ball said about it is like perfect. To be honest, it's like it's not passing a judgment, but it's showing humans through the eyes of apes and presenting it to be judged.
Yeah, I think that's what the beauty of science fiction is. It's kind of like examines ourselves in like extraordinary circumstances. How do we make the audience feel marginalized and in the minority, and kind of like being stepped on and downtrodden and all that? We kind of like put them in this, like put it in the world of apes, kind of like make the main character this white man, like just literally put in a cage, make him seem less than, make them assume his intelligence is less than, and people think his appearance is what makes him stupid, kind of thing. People judge you by experience and stuff, and humiliate him and make him vulnerable. And it's literally it's some of it is on the nose, but a lot of it still kind of like has so much profoundness to it. Like if you think about it, like the orangutans, they're the lawgivers, they're the politicians, and they're the lightest skin apes, the ones with the lightest skin. And then the chimps are the scientists, they're like the intellectuals and middle class. And the gorillas, they're the darkest skin, and they're the working force, they're the laborers, they're the ones that the military is based around. So it's kind of, it's all there, kind of like, yeah, this is how it is. And it's like when Taylor actually observes it and points it out, he goes and says some apes are more equal than others, it seems, and he's bang on. So it's quite scary that even with the apes, even if they are better than humans, they still have the foibles of man.
Well, that's the thing that's super interesting about it, because it's like you've got the prejudice against the humans, but you've also got a class structure within the apes as well. And it's like, and what I find really interesting as well is that from kind of like from I guess like a normal person's perspective, like, you know, we all put sort of doctors and nurses and whoever on pedestals, but from like the eyes of like the political classes and like the elite and whatever, like, you know, they're still in a position it's a position that can be taken advantage of. And I think this film's quite clever in that respect, because of the chimpanzees being the doctors and talking about how kind of like they're basically glorified vets and all of this stuff about their working conditions and all of that. And I was like, wow, that's really like there's a lot of insight in that, because it's something that you don't see depicted in sort of like human characters, because, well, the people who look at doctors and nurses that way aren't the people who make films. Like it's super interesting.
It was really like that when you first saw like Dr. Zero and her husband, because it's like, you know, I'm waiting for that promotion, and we just got like approval from like the chimpanzees, and we'll just just got that promotion. I don't want to ruin my lives. And it
Yeah, exactly.
also, yeah, it's so amazing.
It's just like in real life. It's like I don't want to really mess up what's good, he's like Dostoevsky. He doesn't want to mess up with the status quo. He wants things to stay they are. He's very like intelligent and he's very innovative, and he wants to know the facts and the truth about things, but he kind of doesn't want things to get too weird, so he doesn't lose his wife, his job, and his home. He kind of wants to stay where he is. And Zira's a bit more headstrong. She's a bit more like, oh, I need to know what this is and that and this. But at the same time, they're still under the thumb of orangutan government.
Right. There was actually a tangent on that. This is a bit of a weird tangent for that because of like the colours of the furs is what you mentioned. Maybe think about it. When Taylor Dodge and landed went through the desert and they first saw the scarecrows, or I guess assume are scarecrows, right?
Yeah.
Was that fur on the scarecrows? Because it's like I know it's a little point, right? Because like was it actually like ape fur on the scarecrows, and was it made by humans or was it made by apes? But from apes, by apes to warn other apes, because it's if that is the case, that's a horrendous and gross thing to see. Because when you walk past it, you see like the tufts of like the reddish fur, reddish blonde fur, like black fur, and the more like brown fur, like just on like stretched out, and it's like, do we have ape execution where they were afterwards left there as a reminder for other apes to stay in line? And I know it's just like that's fucks, and it's just like I don't know. But that's just small.
It's an interesting point because in my interpretation of it, scarecrows that meant to look like jumping apes, like that, just like going up into it to scare off humans that may be wandering in and out. So, however, like in the reboot films in Planet of the Apes, they actually basically crucify Caesar on a very similar podium where he's lying back onto a cross that's literally an X. So that was a good like fallback, I felt. But in my opinion, it's just to warn off like primitive humans from going too far because they see that, oh crap, there's a ape coming after them. They're not going to make any. So, whether or not the fur is made of real or not, I think it's meant to look like gorilla fur, in my opinion. But who knows? Maybe
Gorilla warfare.
Yeah, gorilla warfare. But who knows? It could be like maybe humans would have like used that as some. Maybe there were apes that were sacrificed as to warn other humans that we can do this to apes, we can do this to humans even worse, kind of thing.
Bullshka.
I will say, like, some of the stuff that they repurposed for the reboot is it works really well when you watch this after watching the reboot as well. And the bit that really got me because of the reboot in this was when Charlton Heston actually talks to the apes for the first time, and they're kind of like taken back by it, and they're like, "Oh my god, the human has spoken." Because that kind of like, because when you watch it, sort of, because I think the first time I'd have watched Planet of the Apes, it must have been when I was like 12, 13, something like that. And because it's a human speaking, it's like, yeah, man, like right on, like he's got his voice back. But then when you watch it after you've seen the scene in the reboot where Caesar's like, no, it's like, oh shit, man, like that must have been like such a like.
It's a watershed moment. Yeah.
Because it's I mean, like to us seeing a human speak is like whatever, but then once you've seen an ape speak and you can apply that feeling back to this human speaking, it's like, oh wow, like that's such a like that must have been such like a sort of gut punch for the apes. Has everyone seen Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes?
Isn't that the most recent one?
Yeah.
No.
No.
There's a bit in Kingdom. I mean, to be fair, there's one bit in the trailer that's a reference to.
You can spoil it for me. It's fine. I mean, if it's anything like the other movies.
Yeah, apes together strong.
Apes together, God damn it! Apes together strong. Yeah, but it's like
There's a bit in Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes which I think is actually one of the best bits in the whole franchise, And I was thinking that the bit with the doll in this, if they replaced that with what they did in Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, it would have been so much better. And it's basically that in Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, they find an old children's book, and it's
Oh
got
yeah.
like illustrations of apes in the zoo. And so they're looking at it and they're like, "What the fuck is this? Like, why the fuck were we behind bars? Like, this makes no
Oh,
sense."
they did that in the TV series. To be honest,
Oh, did they?
there was like
Oh,
yeah,
did they? Yeah.
I remember because again I watched it a long time ago, but I did remember this particular scene because that there was ape and human working together. Twist, but like it's essentially he's trying to work with the human and see understand it. They find like an old like mural of like a zoo, and they saw a human lady with her baby, and the baby was holding a banana to the gorilla who was behind bars, and he saw it, and he was just the ape was so shocked.
It's such a
But
cool
so,
idea.
but yeah, but afterwards he like got like a knife and like removed the poster, and he like hid it away. And as the human was about to escape, he was like, "So, when were you going to tell me?" And it's like, and he shows him the poster. This is how you treat apes, and he, is about to betray and kill him.
Yeah.
But then afterwards, there's like two other gorillas who found the poster, saw it, and they looked at each other, and they just went, shh, 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 and just threw it like straight to pieces. I was like, that's some good storytelling there, right? Because it was such. But yeah, like, wait, the book wasn't Curious George, right? Just sorry.
No,
I
well,
don't think they had the rights to Curious
no.
George.
Okay.
There's a
If it was Curious George, it would have actually been better. It's like it's a big man, but take care of small ape. It's such a lovely story. Yeah, that would have been great. But unfortunately, it probably wasn't Curious George, was it?
Yeah.
there was a
I think that's maybe one of the things that I would have liked it to do a little bit more is just have the three humans who land be a bit more kind of curious about it all, I suppose, because you only really get a couple of instances of it where they're like, oh, there's something growing, which means there must be life of some sort, and that kind of thing. And then I don't know, like it does kind of it escalates quite rapidly because then they're jumping in the lake, and I'm like, but you don't know what this lake is made of.
Well, I mean, like,
I mentioned that.
unfortunate about this film is that there's quite a few. I don't know if they're considered tropes or not, but let's say they're tropes. It's like the first person to die, apart from was either a woman or a person of color, and
Yeah.
that's true. And it's like because like with Stuart, she was she was dried out. I don't know how long it takes to dry out a body, but like
Modified.
mummified, right? It's a bit like okay, gross. First person to die was Landon, person of color. So like it hits 2 points of like tropes already, and it's just like trope. The other thing about it, a very big trope, is the dumb prison guard tropes. I don't know how to explain it right, and it's just like because the guy was just smoking a cigar, like reading. What? Oh, you have a letter from Dr. Zayas. Let me see this first. Oh, it's all fucking glow. I was like, all right, and then we take it to the light. And he's like, and he's miming.
And
after he goes, I'm sorry, man. I didn't see to be co-signed with Dr. Zayas. Yeah, you see right here, and it's like, hey, grab it. It's. I mean, again, early. I mean, 60s. Maybe tropes were not quite.
That's when they're starting to form. I think.
Yeah. But like it's got like quite a few of them, and you go, I feel like that's actually. I mean, this is probably like one of the first times it's been done, so it wasn't quite a trope yet, but it developed into the trope, and it's just like, it's a very.
That's fair enough.
I must admit, the only kind of tropey aspect to it that I wasn't on board with was it's the kiss at the end. It was like.
It's fucking hilarious.
It's so damn ugly.
You're so damn. It's like
it's just like the whole thing with like the thing with him and Nova is a bit like I don't know. It's a bit icky.
Of course,
But you can kind of you can kind of like justify it in a sense, I suppose, because she's a different type of human, and the type of human that she is one that hasn't had any education and all of this kind of stuff. So you can kind of go like, yeah, it's not. I mean, he's kind of objectifying her, but that's kind of like as far as the sexism goes. Like, it's not ideal.
She doesn't
but
know that.
Yeah, like it's not ideal, but it's you know more innocent than it could be.
Yeah.
But then the only intelligent female is the ape, and then he's just like, oh, before I go, I'm gonna kiss you, and it's like, oh, for fuck's sake.
Yeah. And after it's like it does it. Then after it's got her husband does that, you hear the little growl,
Yeah, he's so
and
like.
and it
Yeah,
was
so, I mean, Cornelius is like he's very displeased about it. It's
yeah,
like
but it's just
they're married. They're
Yeah.
married couple. What's going on?
it's like what I did for the life
If it
of me,
was
I
like
did
on
not
the
remember.
cheek, it
Yeah, I
might
didn't
be
remember.
more better. I think.
I feel like if it was a hug,
Yeah,
it would have
it
been
would have been
perfectly
fine.
acceptable. It's like it's like to say
on the lips.
thank you as like hug, like because maybe it's like not a tradition to shake hands because like Cornelius was like he stuck out his hand and Cornelius
Yeah.
was like
They hold their hands quite a lot in this film, so that's their bond and like what
Yeah.
the chimpanzee would do.
but it was like it took him a quick second to go. Oh, you want me to hold your hand? Right, all right, okay, shake it. But afterwards, it's like if he said just like thank you for helping me, and gave her a hug, perfectly fine. It's actually it would have been a sweet moment actually. But I'm going to kiss you now. Oh, but you're so goddamn ugly. And it's like what the fuck? I just like it's just so fucking like out there, and it was just like what the fuck is this? But yeah, that's just like it was definitely it was. I don't know if it was supposed to be a funny moment, but it is. It's just a funny moment now.
I think it is intended to be funny, but you know what? Hollywood movies in those days, everything had to end in a bloody kiss, no matter what. Every Hitchcock movie had one. Every film in the 60s, 70s.
Oh, you say
50s, 60s actually.
You say it ended in a kiss, right? But it ended in like the most iconic. Like,
oh yeah, true. Yeah, if it ended then, it would have like been like what? But yeah, they ended properly with a final scene that knocks everyone's socks off.
Yeah, that is kind of an interesting thing about this. So, like, just picking up on you saying sort of like Hollywood in those days, because this is right on the sort of edge between like old Hollywood and new Hollywood.
Yeah,
and, like, it's weird because it's like in terms of like the political themes and like the things that it's making a commentary on and all of that, it's so like it's so timeless. And there's so many parts of it that are still like super relevant to things that are still going on now, and like I don't think it's ever going to be like irrelevant to the world. But yeah, like because it's on that sort of edge between new Hollywood and old Hollywood, like the sort of vibe of it is so much older than it is. Like it's a really weird mix of stuff, because like in terms of like the acting and all that stuff, it's very like sort of like old kind of like play to the boom mic kind of thing. Like
it's very theatre acting.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good point, because it came out in 1968. The year was so like volatile, and everything was going on. It's like the end of the Flower Power movement, and the Vietnam War was in full swing. The Black Panthers were all starting out, and Martin Luther King was assassinated, and then the race riots happened, and then the space race was just about to begin, and the Hollywood was sort of crumbling in on itself, and yet they managed to make this film that's kind of like the perfect epitome of all of those things.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it, actually. It is kind of like a hodgepodge of everything that's happening at the time.
Yeah, and it still works. Yeah. Like the guy, if you guys didn't know, Pierre Boulle, the guy who wrote the book, he did Bridge on the River Kwai.
Oh, did he?
Oh.
Yes, yeah, and Michael Wilson, who did the screenplay, he did also the adaptation of it, and he was responsible for most of the political stuff and all the trials and all the racial politics. And then Rod Sterling, who did The Twilight Zone, did a draft of the script as well, and he contributed the twist ending, it being Earth all along kind of stuff. So he was the guy that kind of gave it the kind of like the kick. So those three writers kind of made this film how it is. And it's just
if the end part is the guy who made the Twilight Zone, that damn you're so damn ugly scene, actually makes 100% more sense. No, because there's the episode of the Twilight Zone where the lady needs to do like facial reconstruction to make herself pretty.
Oh
And
yeah,
after
that one. I know the one
she
you mean.
removes, but then after she removes bandages, and she's a beautiful woman, but everyone is horrified because they look like, well, weird, very like not like traditionally beautiful people, but because they all look like that, she's like, oh my god, she's disgusting. Yeah. And it was like, oh, that, well, yeah. I mean, I didn't know about the like Twilight Zone guy helping write the ending, but if he did, 100% more makes 100% more sense. I was like, damn, so many layers in this film. So much stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, what else can we mention? Oh, one thing I wanted to mention is like it's interesting that Charlton Heston did it because he's done like so many science fiction films like this, like The Omega Man, if you guys have seen, and Silent Green, 2 films I may pick.
Silent Green is like a great. It's a whole thing, right?
But they're so like they'll have this sort of same sort of ideology that Planet of the Apes has, and it's quite interesting that Charlton Heston. He's a Republican. He was quite a gun-toting American Republican, and yet he chose to be in these films that are so like very, you could say, left-wing in the sense that they kind of question authority, they question the government, and he's still drawn to these movies despite him being the way he is. So I find
that bit. You bringing up his gun-loving thing.
Yeah.
So like, I was talking to my mum about watching the film during dinner, and she said that she used to like him, but she got a turn off him when he was a big member of the US Rifle Club.
Oh, the NRA.
And then it dawned on me what that line in Shaun of the Dead meant when Ed wanted to get their rifle down from above the bar, and he got called a Charlton Heston.
Oh right, yeah, that's the reference.
I did think at the time it was a weird insult, but now it makes total sense.
Yeah.
In terms of Charlton Heston, I don't think I've seen any other film with him in.
Oh, I have to pick more then.
But like, that's a big hole in my sort of cinema knowledge.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of the stuff from the '60s that's not Bond. I've not really seen.
I mean,
he is a great actor.
I mean, it makes sense for this movie at least because the turn, like where it's like the last, like I'd say 30 minutes of film, where he feels like he's in power again, is when he gets the rifle. And like, I don't know if that's like, I don't know if that's a bit like, all right, yeah, I feel like I have my like strength again.
Yeah,
like I've got Thor's hammer, but I have my rifle. Yeah, I have my power in my gun. And I don't know if that's like, I don't know how I feel like that's on purpose, but I don't know how to explain it without making it sound like is because of his NRA like association. Because if it is because of that, it makes it become like it makes it kind of.
It kind of is, but I think that's what's so cool about the film is that he kind of goes on this arc that he kind of like, I'm too good for this world. I reject humanity. And he's a nihilist. He's a cynical, but he's pragmatic at the same time. And he goes on this journey. And he's like he becomes like he feels what it's like to be a slave, kind of thing. And then when he gets his gun back, he's like, I've got my control back. I'm escaping these bloody apes and going off to live my life. And then he sees the Statue of Liberty, and then it all crumbles down again. So he kind of he has to go through that change one more time. Yeah, it's still his world is literally on the floor at that point. So he kind of goes up on this high, and then he goes straight because he realizes, oh crap, that's it. There's nothing I can do now. This Earth is gone. I've just realized how that planet was for me. I hated it. It's kind of, what do I do now? It's just so downbeat for him. So this guy's just gone through it all. Despite the gun he has, despite the power he has with the apes, it means nothing. Because what can he do? He's aimless. It's just flawed him.
If you think that is a downbeat like ending, So Charles Heston pushed for the ending that that we actually got to see, and kept pushing. Eventually, it's like, you know what? Yeah, you have a fair point. Let's rewrite this. The original ending, his character dies. He gets Darius, the Pope guy, basically doesn't stop them. He lets them chase after him, and basically they shoot him and kill him. And I think that's how it is in the books as well, which is why they originally wanted to.
Interesting. Yeah, because in the books it was not meant to be Earth. It's supposed to be just to be another planet of the apes. It isn't. Isn't our planet, and it was just kind of like he was destined to die. So I can get that. It's more like he was just gonna. That was it.
Do you know what though? Like you saying about it being a left wing film and that kind of thing, and him being a right wing person. Like, I can see how you would interpret it as like a right wing allegory as well, because not that I would agree with it, but I can see how you would look at it and go, well, the only person who has ended up worse off here is the one who's trying to change things. Like it's like everyone who's like fighting for the status quo is fine.
That's true. That's true. Is this and that is like, yeah, if you believe his beliefs, then it's fine. Nothing's wrong.
Yeah.
If you're just doing this and that, then you mess up.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's literally like, the ones who have like left their planet in search of a better world are the ones who've returned to the old world and found out that it's in a worse state than when they left it.
Yeah. One thing could be said actually. Maybe Charlton Heston's, because he signed on quite early. Maybe he signed on before Rod Sterling put his prints on it, his fingerprint touch on it, before he made the twist ending, and before all the political stuff was added by like Michael Wilson. Maybe he was like, whatever, I'll just do this and that. But it's hard to say because we don't know how Charlton Heston was in person in real life. But maybe he signed on initially as, it's just a science fiction film with apes. But the fact he's been on very interesting films like Soylent Green as well, which is just as politically ambitious as this film, I think, says a lot. That you can't really see either film and be like, hang on, they're trying to have a point here about corporations and governments and things being hidden from the public. So this.
To be honest, it's probably as simple as just actor brain.
Yeah, maybe he's just like, yeah, whatever. Maybe that's why he was acting.
There's so many examples of actors doing things that just seem like against their beliefs. Like Roger Moore was like a huge trade unionist, and then he supported Margaret Thatcher, and it's like, well, that doesn't.
Oh, what?
You can't do both. But actor brain.
Yeah, maybe that's why they're good actors. Like they can kind of like separate the two and just be like, yeah, tomorrow I'm doing this, and the next day I'm doing that.
Well, at least this is not modern times. At least he's not going, yeah, make America ape again.
Exactly.
So, yeah, it's a lot of. Oh man, it's just mainly because you talked about Soylent Green, and like just like, well, I mean, the ending is like, I can't spoil it because like I don't know who hasn't watched it, but it makes sense because like he is trying to change the status quo, but you know, and it's just like, yeah, it's a whole. Damn it! God damn it! I feel like the endings for most of these films are the most iconic parts, or the phrases are the most iconic parts. Like especially for this particular film, that Statue of Liberty scene has been done so much, to the point where it's only like 20 seconds long, that scene, right? And it's just like so much of it.
I really wish it wasn't as iconic as it is, because I don't know, like somebody going into Planet of the Apes, not knowing that it ends with that, is such a cool experience, and I feel like you can't really get it now because everyone knows what it ends with.
It's such a hard like balance though, because it's part of pop culture, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And like this was made in 1968, right? What did you guys say?
68,
Uh, Ben's
That
had enough
is-
of talking. He's
Yeah.
typing.
Oh, sorry, I thought I was made. 1968, yes.
1968, as to put it in to make us sound old, at this point in time, is 60 years ago. That's over half a decade.
Oh my
And it-
goodness.
Fucking just like thinking of it like that, and it's just like, fuck. It's been a long time since this film came out.
Yeah.
50. I mean, like, because things have happened in pop culture that will always be part of it and becomes, well, it's no longer spoiler territory because it's been so long. It's like going, Luke, I am your father. It's just like,
it's literally
when you
it's the
first-
same level as that.
yeah, it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, if you don't know about it, people would think you're a bit crazy or think you're fucking with them. If you go, what are you talking about? If I said, what are you talking about? What's Statue of Liberty? I don't know. I don't understand what you're talking about. You know, when the end of Planet for that, where they realize they're on Earth. They're on Earth? What are you talking about? I've never watched this film before. You think you're a bit crazy, right? It's like, it's oh crap. What was that like? It's that comedian. I remember watching back a long time ago. He pretended when he went back to the States, he was like, he didn't know who Jesus was, and he was like, what? Who? He did what?
Who's Jesus?
Yeah, but he was like, how'd you spell his name? You mean Jesus? And it was like, and it pissed everyone off. But it's just a thing of like,
Oh, the bloke that plays for Arsenal.
but the point is, because it's so iconic and because it's been used in pop culture so much, it's a thing of it's what makes it iconic, right? There's nothing you can't. I was gonna say gatekeep. That's not the right word I'm looking for. It's just part of the norm, and because you realize it's part of the norm, it's just like the way things are. I don't know when it will happen now, or when a certain film will have such an impact that will impact all future films.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no, tell a lie. There is a it's a commentary about like action films nowadays where it all ends in sky laser, and it's like
Oh, the beam in the sky, yes.
yeah, beam in the sky. It's like, oh no, there's a big beam in the sky, and it's just like, why is there beam? Oh, it's like it's where the MacGuffin Deus Ex Machina bad guy or whatever shit is happening. Beam in the sky, and it's all because of the beam in the sky.
No Man's Sky.
It's well, No Man's Sky is something else. But it's because it's become a trope. Yeah, it becomes a trope. But then if it's a good trope or it's such an interesting trope, it becomes iconic. If it's not a good trope, it just becomes lame. It just becomes fucking again. We're gonna do this again, and it's just like there's no fine balance. There's a balance between it. Just can't seem to find it because trope. Something becoming iconic can become a trope or become like just iconic because of like the original thing. But this I feel like is iconic because it's the original thing. Because as you said, this wasn't in the books. This was like in the books he just dies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is the iconic original idea, and I think that sticks quite well. And that's the way it is.
It's more just that I think it's a shame, really, because if you were able to have that experience of like not knowing about that scene beforehand, then like the impact of seeing it for the first time and having that realization of like, oh shit, they were on Earth all along, like it's just it's a shame that you kind of. It's exactly like the Luke, I'm your father bit in Star Wars. Like it's so rare that somebody's able to watch it and go like, oh shit. To be fair, Rachel did, because when I showed her Star Wars for the first time, we got to that bit and I remember her being like, oh shit, he was his dad.
She didn't know it, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was such a nice moment because she didn't know, but like it's so rare that people don't.
It's so. It's one of those things of man. It's like finding a I wouldn't say finding a well, no, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's like finding a unicorn. It's just such a rare, a beautiful moment to see that. But it's like I don't know. I feel like we've got to judge it. I mean, I guess we could ask Rachel. Rachel, what other like films haven't you watched, and like what other films can we just? Did you know what happens at the end of the Lord of the Rings? I mean, like if we, I mean, it was like, oh, you can watch. Let's make her watch Lord of the Rings just so we can see what what happens at the end of Lord of the Rings. I mean, if
that was the thing with this as well, though, because I was showing her the reboot films, and I asked if she wanted to watch the original films, but I was like, do you know what the twist is? Because if you don't know what the twist is, you should really watch the original before the reboots, because the reboots give away the twist.
Yeah, the existence of them kind of ruins it all. But yeah, but me and Pat didn't really know the twist until until a minute.
Did
you not know
idea, though, that there's an alternative interpretation is that just that they landed on Earth one day and thought that is a lovely statue.
Yes. It's the French one. Alec would hate that if it was the French one.
They might be a dirty species, but they can make a lovely statue.
No, it's just because from what I remember, the French one is about half. Well, I say half, but it's still like 200 feet tall, right? The goddamn statue.
Massive,
So
yeah.
even half it is like 100 foot. So a 100-foot statue is like, yeah, it would make sense because like of where it's positioned, it's near the ocean. But obviously, it makes sense for this film because it's been over like it's been like 1,000 years or some nonsense, right? So like it got eroded from like Liberty Island, and because it's like in the middle of Liberty Island, it's obviously got the sand bank, and it hits the sandbank where the Hudson is. And I was like, look, because I had to check a map for where it was, and I was like, oh yeah, so that's the Hudson River, and if we go further up, it's going to be New Jersey. And it's like, oh wow, why did they land in the river? It's like, where would they landed on? It was like, oh, but this man because like the map wise, it would have changed, but it's like the Hudson River and like up north is going to be New Jersey, Canada. I was like, oh, cool. Yeah, maybe if he goes further up, this could be perfectly fine because Canada is quite a nice place, and I don't think Canada is going to be part of the nuclear war. Hopefully. But in any case, I feel like we've hit that time where we can go. I mean, I feel like every time it hits about 12-ish or 12:30-ish, we get tired. We all kind of get tired.
We are lagging out. Okay,
Yeah.
favorite scenes.
Every scenes, yeah.
Yeah.
Mine's definitely the courtroom one, just because of what I said earlier about how it was like reminded me of a citizenship test, and it was sort of like testing him on something that he just wouldn't have any knowledge about. But there's so many like really good moments like that. Like, I mean, obviously the Statue of Liberty is really cool. I think the one where they see the humans for the first time and Charlton Heston's like, oh, if this is the best we've got, we're going to be ruling this place within a few weeks or whatever he says. That's a really cool scene as well, because like his kind of, like I was saying earlier, like it sort of makes the film about like seeing humanity in him as well, because that's just like, I don't know, man, like that with the context of what he was saying earlier about leaving Earth because he thought there must be something better out there, and then it turns out he just wants to rule over something and it doesn't really matter what. It's like, oh, you're such a dick, man. but then after everything he goes through, and you're still going like, yeah, that's a rough situation to be in.
Yeah,
I think that makes it such a cooler film for it.
Yeah, really good character work there. Yeah, I mean, Courtroom is one of the best scenes in my opinion. Obviously, the first ape hunt as well. But I think, yeah, the final scene, but before that, where Cornelius reads the one of the scrolls from that Zeus gives him, is one of like the most profound ones because it just sums up humanity as well. I'll read it out now because I've got up. But you see, he goes, "Beware the beast of man, for he is the devil's paw. Alone among God's primates, he kills for sport or lust or greed. Yeah, he will murder his brother to possess his brother's land. Let him not breed in the great numbers, for he will make a desert of his home. Shim him, drive him back into the jungle lair, for he is death. I thought that's just like incredible speech. That incredible writing there. But will we learn the lessons from this 50-year-old film? Probably not.
As history repeats itself
No.
many times now. Favorite scene and least favorite scene actually. It's the favorite scene is the airplane scene because it's such a basic like paper airplane
yeah.
design, right? And it just confounded them. So just to the where their prosthetic like jaws dropped, and it's just like something about it is like people can't fly. Flying is an impossibility, and it's like oh, not impossible. And it's just like something about that was so good, and just seeing like it just straight out impossible. Hey, so what's this? And it's just like wow, it's just like straight up blew their mind completely. So it was so good to see that because it was just like everything I'm trying to tell you is true, and it's such a great thing. Least favorite scene, it was the scene where I think he was talking to Landon, or it might be he was talking to Nova, sorry, and he was talking about Stuart, and he was talking about I mean like your pretty face, but like and we was here, hopefully trying to live in a new possible world with Stuart. She was such a clever, such a beautiful woman, so smart and stuff. She was gonna be like my Eve, and I thought, again, it's because this film is quite misogynistic. I was like, that's kind of like, does she even like you? I mean, like you're making very high presumptions there, right? And it's like, yeah, what? It's like she was gonna be my Eve, and you're gonna be her Adam, right? And it's just like that's. I don't know. It's something about it, right? It's the way he said it, and it's just kind of like felt icky, and it's like, ew, what sort of man are you? And it's like, oh right, he's a misogynistic. Yeah, it's like icky, smelly man. Yes, yeah, humans. Okay, yeah, it's like, oh,
He's a
right.
damn dirty ape himself.
Damn it, Rob. That was one of my favourite scenes.
Yeah.
Like that one.
Yeah.
It's just like he's obviously not able to talk. So that's why you damn dirty ape. The airplane scene I quite liked as well. But just that whole sort of scene in general, like where he's writing on pieces of paper to communicate with the two. Can't even remember their names. I thought that was pretty neat, and then obviously ending with him finally talking. I thought like they're quite small but significant parts of the film.
Yeah.
And of course, the explosion at the end when they blow up the cave.
Oh, that's.
That was a nice little boom. It on the Michael Bay scale is probably 1.5 out of 10, but you know it's nice.
Yeah,
Cool.
Dr. Zaius is just like he's underrated as a villain because he's like,
Yeah, he's not.
controlled that population, man.
Yeah, he had everyone under the thumb, just making sure everyone was doing what they meant to be doing. So as long as we keep the facts from them, they won't rebel.
Yeah, it's mad.
Yeah, but-
Like,
He's a proper Tory.
Yeah, pretty much.
maybe that was it. Maybe Charlton Heston read the script and he was like, "This Dr. Zaius knows what he's doing."
Yeah, so yes, he's the hero of the film. Yeah,
He is Rishi
He's the
Sunak.
hero. She's the.
Did he have Sky when he was a kid?
No, because he said the planes that don't exist. So no, he
Yeah,
purposely had no sky.
That is such a
Yeah.
good line. Like, it's scientifically impossible, and even if you could fly, where would you fly to?
Mm.
It's so like, it's such a good kind of like, it's such a good way to sort of get an insight into their mindset of the like this their sort of tiny frame of reference being all there is.
Yeah, it's just that it is very like whether or not it's a flaw, kind of like a pro or like one of the strengths of the film is that it kind of only see it in just this small ape community of a couple of 100,000 of them. You don't really see outside of the urban zone or anything like that, and it's just in this small, tight knit community. But it kind of explains why they are the way they are because of that's all they know. They don't know anything better anymore. They don't know much else apart from certain apes like Zeus and probably his father and his father that had found the facts and just been like, no, it's best we keep these quiet. And then there's obviously headstrong apes, Cornelius, who managed to like do some investigating, adventuring on their own and figure that out. Like, crap, what's going on? This will turn the tables and everything, and that's just they're the voice of that the common people, just finding out what it really is and what the truth is out there and what's been hidden from us.
Emmanuel?
Yeah, Emmanuel, you're there? Final thoughts?
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Classic. Yeah, sorry for moments that I've missed it to kind of put in. Very tired. But final thought. It's I think in general, it's been very interesting the conversations we've had around it. It's like, yeah, what they did is interesting, and it's lots of important kind of talking points throughout the film. So yeah, it was a. I guess I didn't necessarily know what to expect, but I think yeah, this was just even though yes, I found certain characters annoying, it was good, and it got us thinking about it from the way of if this is commentary, okay, this that they're saying. Yeah, it's cool. Cool film. Yeah, that's all.
Nice. Thank you, Emmanuel. It's good.
It's,
It was
And what's
very.
that shout out to like
Oh,
Jerry
can-
Goldsmith's music?
Can I just ask? So earlier
Yeah.
on, when I was doing my opening statement, my internet died. What was the last thing you heard from me, if you can remember?
Oh,
I think you apologised to me and then froze.
Oh, yeah. So I said that this round, 3 films were contenders for my bonus point. Akira, which I'm not giving it to purely because it's always been highly regarded, and I think it was fantastic. But I don't think it would benefit from a bonus point.
so F you, Rob.
So sorry, Rob.
That's
So it was between Maverick and Planet of the Apes.
Hey, Planet of the Apes is a classic as well.
But yeah, I suppose it is as well.
No, don't change his mind.
Okay, so Planet of the Apes. Well, Maverick is for this round has probably become quite a special one, just because obviously I was having this rough time over the stuff that's been happening, and it was the film that it was the first thing that made me laugh in like 2 weeks. So it has a special place, especially being a Mel Gibson film. I was gonna give it to Planet of the Apes, but Rob did point out that it's a
God damn you,
classic as well.
Rob.
So I
Yeah.
am going to stick with what I was going to pick for my bonus and give it to Maverick.
Yeah.
I think it
Gun
makes more
Maverick.
sense.
Yeah, Top Gun Maverick is their platform. Good.
But like, they were 3 fantastic films. So like, well done, guys.
Yeah.
You've outdone yourself.
Yeah.
And me too with my fantastic double bill. Let me say, well, one of them
Yes.
anyway.
Days of Thunder is competing for my bonus.
Oh really?
Because that's
Okay.
a film this week
Well,
that I've gone like, bloody hell, that wasn't what I expected.
Do you know what? I'm very surprised.
So that's
That was-
why it's
that was-
competing for my bonus, because I'm so surprised at how good I thought it was.
That's the one film that I thought everyone was going to be like meh. But yeah,
To be honest,
But yeah,
the
Rob
wheelchair
Ben-
race is probably going to get my bonus.
But like, honestly, two of you and Alec, great picks. They were the standouts for me this round. Let's hope we get more in special guest round.
yeah, we shall see.
Really standouts. It's just whether they stand out for the right reasons.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rob might get my bonus point next round if it's what we think it is.
Yeah. On that note, Rob, what is the next week's film?
I'm just telling
Oh,
Rachel
yes.
that we're ready.
Oh, crap. Is she coming back?
Well, as we are doing that, I think it would have to go to Akira for me. If it is, because
give her
it's just so because it's too good, right? And like it's like
other films.
it's like I mean, like as much as I love like Top Gun and stuff, and I did find Maverick really good, goddamn good, because it's such a level of iconic that I can't not give it a point. Which is like obviously I don't want to like how to explain. I don't want to be like, oh, it's just like playing favorites, but it's just like it's just too iconic. No.
Yeah, to be fair,
Two eye iconic.
for me, it's probably between Days of Thunder and Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
I don't know which way. If nobody else gives one to Planet of the Apes, I'll give it to Planet of the Apes. But if Planet of the Apes gets one, I'll give it to Days of Thunder.
Cool. I think I'll give it to a brother we're out there, Emil. As much as I love Maverick, Akira, I think that one, because I always love that film anyway, just has a special place in my heart too.
No. I think.
That was a very good film as well, to be fair.
Mhm.
Yeah. Thanks. I think because I also wanted to be in the awards thing. I don't know if has anyone else given it to Akira because I was.
Oh, I did.
Yeah, so I'm just.
Oh, you did.
Yeah. I
Oh, I thought you didn't give it to Akira.
No, it's because as much as I did love Maverick, I feel like Akira. I like Akira more because of the iconicness to it. Like Top Gun and like Days of Thunder were cool, but like just because if it was on another round, then afterwards, yeah, I'll probably give it to Top Gun because again, it's just the highway to the danger zone. But it's just like because Akira is just Akira, and you're just like, how can you not give it to that? I know that's why I chose Akira.
Damn you, Rob! You cost me a bonus point. You had to pick it the round that I was picking Top Gun.
I mean, that's what. Oh, remember you were saying again?
Oh, I was just gonna say I think I'm gonna give mine to Akira as well. Like I wanted to actually give it to like it's not in this round. I was like, oh, I'll give it to Breadwinner. I was like, oh, that was.
That was last round. Yeah.
I can't do that.
I think you did give it to
but
Breadwinner last round as well.
Yeah, that might have been the case.
Yeah, you did, yeah.
that would make sense. I'm nothing if not consistent, I guess. But yeah, I'll give mine to Akira. But yeah, what were you going to say, Simon?
No, it's just like what was I going to say? Crap. I just like it's we'll see how this round for special guest round is because I think I said because like Rob messaged me like the link to the Discord or this particular call chord, and it's just like he's like there's no point. I was like there's no point. He's not gonna have time to joined us on a call. He's got kids to watch. It was never going to happen. I was like, oh, but like if it's just like for me to describe what film he's picked and like explain why he picked it's fine. It's fine. It explains like the concept for it. And now we're just waiting for Rachel. Rachel.
Before Rachel comes in, two things. One, I'm still trying to like think what my favorite scene was. Because yeah, I wasn't really uh conscious enough at the time um to answer. But I actually kind of find it hard. But it I don't know. Like I really like the see no evil, hear no evil, whatnot kind of thing. Um I guess yeah, that part's really interesting. But also maybe right at the end where yes, probably the end when he's telling yeah, the doctor is telling him, yes, of course I knew all along. And this is why. And it just shows the terribleness of human history right back in his face. And it's just like he doesn't have anything to say. He has nothing to come back with. He just he just leaves. Because what can he say? He's right. It's just like yeah. And also yeah, and again, we already know Taylor's not the smartest. I was just like, man, it took you this long to realize you were on Earth, dude.
Well, I mean, like without it being said to a certain point, like it is what Taylor wanted, anyways. The whole point of him going on this mission in the first place is like, wow, people suck. I want to get rid of them. I think there should be something out there that's a bit better than humans. I think that's actually a phrase that he says. Well, I was like a bit like not verbatim, but like, it's like a thing he pretty much says is like there's something out there that's better than humans. It's apes, and it ends with humans bad, apes good, humans suck
Yeah.
because humans make nukes, and it ends on that note, the same note, and it's like you got exactly what you wanted. Humans suck, they're mostly dead, and now something better is along. It's what is it's the monkey paws like wish granting, right? And it's just like it's exactly what it is.
Yeah. On a very separate thing, in case I forget, um, Rob, so I was thinking of like bringing along something to my birthday from like the Frank thing that I had made.
Nice.
But then I was just like, to be honest, I was just like, I don't actually know if you would even want any of it or anything else. So putting it out the offer now, it's like, is there actually any kind of anything you would like that Frank art on, or would you like something just completely different, or you wouldn't want anything at all?
Oh, dude, I would happily have anything with that Frank art on.
Cool.
Yeah. Let's
I'll,
be frank. It is good.
Dude,
I'll probably bring the tote bag unless you have something else that's a more favorite. Because I thought, you know what, that's kind of useful and it looks quite nice. But
to be fair,
you can pick.
that's very useful for playing Magic.
Ooh, yeah, just have all those in the back.
Oh man,
It's just
my
done.
mum's gonna love that.
Awesome, nice.
I, I kind of want to do something with like the one that came out as Frantic.
I can send it to you,
Yeah,
and
please,
you
man.
could yeah you could do whatever you like with it. Have fun. Oh man. Yeah, it's just great.
That's the great thing about pugs, man. Is like they've got such a like distinctive face that it just fits on anything.
Yeah.
I found out. I don't know if you guys know this, right? So you know, like, so pugs were originally bred by like the Chinese royal family, and apparently the whole thing was that like the crease in their forehead was supposed to look like the Chinese symbol for prince.
I mean,
Oh,
like I've heard that for the same thing for cats for like the tabbies,
Oh,
where it's supposed to have like the M for it. I don't know which particular group of people bred them so that their pattern has a perfect like M shape on their forehead,
mm.
on the forehead. Of well, no, forehead works actually, but like it's like,
Maine Coon,
huh?
Simon. Maine Coon. Yeah,
Did
you
they?
know, it says
Did they? Yeah, because it's just one of those things. But it's an unfortunate part of well breeding animals where like it's unfortunate. I don't know if Frank has breathing problems, but I know of
Do
pugs
you
that
know what?
do.
Frank is like he breathes surprisingly well. Like I don't know, because if you look at Frank's face, like his nose is a little bit further out than a usual pug. I don't know why, but yeah,
He's less
mm,
inbred.
yeah,
I mean, it's yeah. I mean, that's. I mean, like a lot of like crossbreeding is inbreeding and like to make his face more flat. But if his
yeah.
face is a bit out, that means he can breathe relatively normally. And if that's a great thing. That's a he's
Do you know what?
normal.
I didn't notice like how well he breathed until I saw another pug. So like, did I tell you about the other pug that my mum nearly took in?
You mean the female pug that were because Frank is a
Yeah.
misogynist.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So until that pug was around, I didn't realise that Frank was such a good breather because she was like, I mean, doing the slightest thing, she was like out of breath and like she was always like wheezing really loudly, and it was just like shit, man. That's really sad.
That's yeah.
man.
That is dog breeding for you. Like
Yeah.
as much as like seeing all these cool like dog breeds around, like I seeing like oh man, I would like what it's like when those people have go yeah I want a purebred husky. I was like, you know what purebred means? They don't
Yeah.
realize what it means. But it's like, I know, it used to be a purebred husky. It's like, you can get huskies just with like some other mixes. Like, if you get like a husky crossbred with like, I know, I think, oh yeah, I remember, it was a greyhound. And it's still got that sort of like furriness to it. It's still got sort of like color pattern. But it's not going to have so many goddamn health problems.